Around 2001, when I was 10 years old, my family moved to the southwestern United States. Our house was in a desert area, with dirt roads and ditches. As a child, I looked like, and spent a lot of time exploring, chasing lizards and watching quails and road runners. One day, about a month after we moved, I was walking a sandy ravine near my house, looking for scorpions, although I had no idea what I would do if I found one. When I turned a corner, I saw something behind some tumbleweeds, a drain pipe embedded in the dirt wall, about 10 feet long, that formed one side of the ravine. I didn't know what it was called, or what it was for. I only knew it was a tunnel. I looked inside the cement pipe. The floor was covered by a thin layer of sand, and since I didn't see any light at the end, I couldn't tell how far it went. An adult wouldn't fit. But it was perfect for a child of 10 years old, my size. Like most kids, I was naturally curious and didn't think much about whether what I was doing was a good idea or not. I wanted to explore this new world, so I ran home, grabbed my dad's headlamp from a drawer and my old skateboard from the garage. I decided it would be easier to roll on my stomach than crawl. I didn't bother telling my parents what I was going to do, not because I thought they would say no, but because I didn't consider it important enough to ask them. Like I said, I didn't spend much time thinking about whether something was a good or bad idea. Kevin, my 8-year-old brother, was looking at his Pokemon cards when he saw me about to leave the house. Of course, he wanted to come, and I explained my plan to him as we headed to the ravine. When we got to the tube, I told him he could come with me, but there was only one skateboard, so he would have to crawl, and there was only one headlamp, so the tunnel might be dark behind. Kevin wasn't okay with either of these things, so I put my headlamp on and lay down face down on the scooter and walked alone into the tube while Kevin waited outside. As soon as I got in, I was fascinated. I loved the idea that for 10 feet above me, there was nothing but solid ground, and that I was traveling underneath like a mole. The tube was too narrow to comfortably look back, but with a little effort I could have turned around whenever I wanted to. "What do you see?" Kevin shouted with the echo of his voice. I told him the details. Headlamp illuminated a few cobwebs here and there, and the scooter wheels crunched on the sand that covered the bottom of the tube, which was certainly not good for them as I went deeper. Kevin complained that he couldn't hear me at the end. He shouted that he was bored and that he was going home. I answered with the indifferent, "Well, I kept rolling into the pipe." It finally curved, and when I tried to look back, the light from the exit was completely hidden. The cobwebs soon disappeared. Maybe the bugs that ate the spiders didn't bother to go so deep, so they didn't either. The sand under my wheels began to become more grainy, which made the ride more bumpy. The wheels even went over some stones. The air also began to be different. My month in the desert had made me accustomed to a dry, empty heat, but warm. But the fresh air had a palpable weight. From so far inside, they hadn't gone more than 6 meters. Since I turned the curve, when I began to hear a dragging noise behind me, I almost panicked. "It's me." Kevin's voice sounded. I reproached him for scaring me, but I had to admit that I was impressed, that I would have continued had I tried to turn around to greet him, but he complained about the light shining in his eyes, so I didn't bother with the effort. We continued the journey in my mind. We were 2 intrepid brothers, explorers, discovering the artificial insides of the earth. After a few minutes, the layer of sand completely disappeared, leaving only the bare concrete tube beneath us. The air seemed almost humid. "What is that?" he said. "Kevin?" I looked up. pointing the flashlight. It was the entrance to a smaller and narrower tunnel. We approached it. It seemed to intersect with the tunnel we were exploring at a 90-degree angle, and it was higher up. I had to get on my knees to be able to look inside. We should go in there. Kevin said behind me, to see what's there. After all, what you're like, Indiana Jones. I'm kidding, you didn't even want to go in. It seems interesting, he said. It's just too small, I answered. We fit, he insisted, Kevin. I thought about that narrower tube again. It would be a pretty small gap. So much so that I would have to abandon my skateboard to fit in. And my shoulders would probably rub the edges, but yes, theoretically I could fit in there and go through the kids from school. Said it was very nice. He continued, Kevin, what have you been down here? I said, incredulously, yes, liar. What is wrong with you? I think you should go in that tunnel, said Kevin. I bet it is very nice in there, inside. How come I said that? Both must. Let's explore it. That's what I meant. He said, I was going to say something else, but he cut me off. I'll give you, he said, like whatever you want. How about your magic card? I insisted there was no way he was going to give up his favorite Pokemon card. Okay, seriously, after you enter the tunnel. He said. I looked back at the narrow tube, the flashlight. It only illuminated up to a certain point. Further ahead, it was a tunnel, completely black. I can't see anything, I said. Turn off the light, said the voice of Kevin. I pressed the button on the flashlight. Immediately I was enveloped in a total and absolute darkness of those in which you can't see your hand in front of your face. I had never experienced it. It was disturbing. I slowly looked towards where the narrow tube was. I still couldn't see anything. Wait, there was nothing. I closed my eyes, and in the distant darkness of the narrow tube, I could make out something. It was faint, but it seemed like a light at the end from the tunnel. It just didn't look like a normal light. It was red, and it gave me a feeling immensely bad. I don't want to go in there, I said. You're a chicken, Kevin said, angrily. No, I'm not, I replied. I don't think it's a good idea. Come on. Don't you want my cake? Magic, I felt a chill. The magic card was Kevin's favorite. He couldn't have gotten the name wrong. Magic card, I said slowly. That's what I meant to say. I swallowed and felt an emptiness in my stomach. Everything suddenly made sense. Kevin had been weird, more aggressive than normal. Besides, how had I seen the tunnel from behind? And worst of all, I hadn't seen it with my own eyes since we were there, down there. What's going on? Kevin's voice sounded. But now that I really heard it, my mind confirmed what my heart. I already knew what was down there with me. What was right behind me wasn't my brother. I should have run away at that moment, but I didn't. I don't know why. I did what I did next. It was curiosity. Fear slowly shaking. I turned the flashlight back on and started to turn to see what was behind me. I heard a screeching sound. I saw something move in the light of the flashlight, and before I knew it, I felt a blow to my forehead. The flashlight broke, and everything went into complete darkness. I screamed. Something grabbed my wrist, but it didn't look like a hand. I screamed again and pulled my arm with all my strength. For a few terrifying seconds, I fought against that invisible thing. Luckily, I managed to get free. I immediately started moving as fast as I could through the tunnel. I didn't care about the skateboard anymore. I just wanted to get out of there. Luckily, the tunnel wasn't that low, so I could crawl faster, and that's what I did blindly in the total darkness. Come back here. Kevin's voice screamed behind me, but I had no idea what it was. What I was really screaming. I heard the sounds of something kept hitting me on the concrete at high speed. I tried to move faster, but I couldn't see anything. "Come on," said the voice of Kevin, now pleading. "Come back. We'll go into the tunnel together. It will be fun." I moved forward as I could, feeling my knuckles scraping against the concrete and blood running down my fingers. But I kept going. Come back. Go back. I turned a corner, and there was the exit. I could see the light from outside. I don't know where I got the strength, but I moved even faster. I chose the right direction, and I could see the sand and the familiar tumbleweeds. "No." The shrill voice shouted, "I am your brother. Don't leave me alone in this tunnel. You don't love me." Something brushed my legs, but I kept running towards the light. I would really be safe once out of the tunnel. I didn't know, but I didn't stop. The exit was getting bigger and bigger. "Come back," shouted the voice. I stumbled as I got out of the tunnel and fell into the sand, but I quickly stood up and started running. The sunlight almost blinded me, but I kept running. My stomach turned. Kevin was nowhere to be found. What had happened to my real brother? Had I caught that thing? As I walked away from the tunnel, I glanced back, but didn't see any creatures. I kept running as fast as I could, through the sand. Soon my shoes were filled with sand. I kicked them off and ran in my socks, to home somewhere in the back of my mind. I knew I would have to explain to my parents that my brother might be in danger, and that it was my fault. When I finally got home, I slammed the door open. I was so out of breath, I could taste blood in my mouth, panting. I walked into the living room, and there he was. Kevin was sitting on the couch, happy looking at his Pokemon cards, while watching a Disney movie. He looked at me and asked, "What foreign happened to you?"